I have been on this self-publishing journey for a while now, and I've got to say there are a lot of things, and I mean a lot of things that I have learned along the way. And I want to share with you today three things that I have done right and three things that I have done wrong on my self-publishing journey. My name is Tyranika Abrams, and I am the Mama Entrepreneur, and I am here to help you professionally self-publish your children's picture book for profit with confidence. So, as I've touched on in one of my previous videos, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of different checklists for self-publishing that you can find out there on the internet. And some of them are going to have like 7 steps, some can have 40 steps, some can have 10 steps. And you are more than welcome to choose any of those checklists to go based off of, or you could choose none of them. I, for one, did the latter. So I went with none of them. Instead, what I decided to do was take bits and pieces from a lot of different checklists that I found and then just kind of roll with the punches and see what worked for me. It worked out in a way that helped me to learn a lot throughout the process. And I was able to take that and build my own checklist and build a process behind what a successful professional self published job actually looks like. So I'll give you an example. This is a copy of my very first book. And what I did this year is I actually got it reprinted. And this is what it looks like now. So I am here to share with you three things that I did. I'll share first three things that I did wrong with the first book. And then I'll tell you three things that I did right with publishing the first book. One thing that I want to know from you guys, and let me know in the comments, have you already published your very first picture book? And if you have, what are some of the things that you've learned? So, first off, one of the things that I did wrong when publishing my first one, and I absolutely 1000% beg of you, do not make this mistake, please. The first thing I did wrong when self publishing my very first picture book, I did not hire an editor. Why would I do that? Like what who does that? That's like basic on the checklist, right? I was on a budget. But no matter what type of budget you are on, make sure that you build in a budget for your editor. One of the steps in my process before you write your manuscript talks about budgeting. So make sure if you haven't seen that video, go back and watch that one. But make sure that when you are building your budget, before you even start writing your manuscript, that you build in a budget for your editor. Please, that is not something that you want to do. And one of the reasons that you don't want to do that is because after I got my first print run of my very first picture book, guess what I found? Yes, after I had started selling the book, after the book was already in customers' hands, I went through the book and found a typo. So, yes, I beg of you, whatever you do, make sure you do not make the same mistake I did. Number one, hire an editor. The second mistake that I made was I did not hire a book designer. So, again, working with that budget, I thought that I've read picture books, I know what they look like, I can design my own picture book. And I did that. And that's not to say that the book did not turn out very well, because it did. I absolutely loved the first edition of my book. But the difference between the first edition of my book and the limited edition of my book comes down to the way the book was designed. One of the things that you'll see between the first book and the second book is that the second book is a little bit slimmer. That is on purpose. It's a whole lot easier for little hands to hold, and it's a whole lot easier for teachers. My very first book was very well received in the educational community, particularly by primary school teachers, and they really found that the size of the book mattered. Even more than the size was the formatting of the book on the inside. So make sure that when you are starting off on your self publishing journey, again, talking about that budget, make sure you are building in formatting and book design into your budget. That is very, very, very important. So, number two, hire a book designer. The last mistake that I made was when I printed my very first print run of my first copy of the book, I did not know the difference between RGB and CMYK. Why is that important? I will get to that. But what you will see is that on this very first copy, the colors look good, but they are not nearly as bright and vibrant as they could be. When I saw my book on the computer screen, it looked gorgeous. The colors just popped. And when I got the copy in my hand, it didn't look nearly the same. So let me point out that I did actually get a sample of the book before I did my major print run. And when I got my sample, the colors popped just like it looked on my screen. And the reason for that is because the sample of my book was actually digitally printed. When you are digitally printing copies of your book, digital prints in RGB color. So the exact same colors or very similar colors to what I was seeing on my computer screen is exactly what I was holding in my hand when I got my sample. What I did not know is that if you choose to offset printing is done in CMYK colors, which brings me to the very first thing that I did right in printing. The first thing that I did right was offset printing. So, offset printing, although it does cost a lot up front to get your print run done, it is a whole lot cheaper for you in the long run, and it makes it so that you make so much more of a profit on the sale of each of your books. Number one, the very first thing that I did right in self publishing my very first picture book was offset printing. But taking that back to number three, the third thing that I did wrong in self publishing is when you are offset printing, you print in CMYK color. So I want to show you the difference between RGB and CMYK color. So here I have for you a spread from the very first copy of my book. So on this spread, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to tell it, but it looks it looks very nice. The colors are there. However, if we compare that to the colors in the reprinted version, look at how much they pop. Huge difference, exact same spread. This is what you want in your book. It's these colors. Make sure you avoid the number three thing that I did wrong, and make sure that whichever way you choose to print your self published book, you are using the correct color profile. Now, to get back to the positive. So, the second thing that I did right when self publishing my first book is I used beta readers. So, I reached out to different primary school educators, different parents that I knew were interested in children's picture books, and I sent them my manuscript and I had them read over it and give me their feedback on it. And using their feedback, I was able to go through and tweak my manuscript so that I made sure that the words that I was using and the things that I was saying was appropriate for the age, for the target audience, for the audience that I was targeting. My very first book is targeted at children ages 3 to 8. I wanted to make sure that it read that way, but also that it was interesting enough for the parents or the adults that was reading the books with the children. So the second thing that I did correct was make sure that I sent my manuscript to beta readers to get their feedback and make sure that my manuscript was the best manuscript for my target audience. And finally, the third thing that I did right when I was self publishing my very first book is I wrote a story that was relatable. The inspiration for that very first book was a situation that happened with my daughter. And my purpose for writing the book was really so that she had someone to look up to, so that she knew that someone else had been in that exact same situation that she had been in, and that it was okay, and that I was there to help her through it. The message behind my book is to embrace your differences and to know that the things that make you different from others is exactly what makes a difference for others. And I wanted to make sure that through this story, my daughter understood that. What I did not realize when writing the story is that the lesson transcended more than just my daughter. It reached a lot of different audiences, children that had been through so many different situations. And it's a beautiful thing to see that the story that I wrote is so relatable to so many different people. And that is one thing that I feel really helped to make this book a success, even with that one little typo. Now that I have reprinted the book, I have seen such wild success with this book. And it is something that has been ingrained in me now going forward to make sure that the books that I write are relatable and my target audience really doesn't even know that they need this book until they get it in their hands. That being said, there is so much more that I could go into about the things that I did wrong and the things that I did right when publishing my very first picture book. But what I can say, no matter whether I got it right or I got it wrong the first time, what really is a success for me is the fact that I was able to do it. I got it done. And I now have a process that I follow to make sure that every book going forward comes out exactly the way that I want it to. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe so that every week when a new video comes out, you will be notified. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments, and I'll see you next week.